from your classes, say deposit interest coming in, if you get grants, or if you have any other income sources like which come into your branch. Now, again, how do you record your books? You can keep them by hand. You can get an Excel spreadsheet or do an accounts package. But I'm going to work off, say, a basic Excel spreadsheet here. If you're doing it by hand, you can get one of the red Cathedral analysis books, which has 14 or 15 columns across, and you can set it up in the same way. So you can see here, it's just a very simple headings across the top, your date, the detail of what it was, the total. It was membership, there was music classes, there was dancing classes, there was a church gate collection, your Cayley, your sponsorship, analysing across. There's the total coming in, which is 5,325. There's the analysis of what it was, giving you your crosstat, and it's all built into your spreadsheet. So that's just a very basic spreadsheet, which can be set up very easily. And again, if you want to do it by hand, you just set it up in your analysis books the same way. Again, cash payments. This is an area that I suppose that there's can be a bit of controversy about. I would advocate not paying anything in cash if possible. It doesn't lend itself to accurate record keeping if you're not lodging your money in and then paying it out. You're not keeping a proper track of it. If you're paying out, say, for a band or for teachers or for whatever in cash, number one, you don't have proper records, but number two, it can lead itself to a question at a meeting or someone saying, oh, should we have no record of that? Should the treasurer gets all the money in and should we don't know how much is there and should he's paying it out in cash? So again, I would avoid paying out cash as much as possible. But we all know that in some situations, say like a Cayley, you have two musicians coming, they don't want a check, they don't want EFT, they only want the few euros. But again, I would say set up your analysis columns again in another page for your cash payments out, showing your lodgements, where it was lodged to the current account, the deposit account, or in this case here, sorry, we'll go back there. It was paid. Have I gone the wrong way? Sorry, no, lads. I'm after losing it. Sorry, 1 sec now. Bear with me now. We'll go back. Sorry now about this, lads. Now, listen to me there. Don't go back. Keep going forward. Now. Okay. So again, as I was saying, I've recorded there that there was cash paid out to a band, cash paid for the teas and coffees, and the rest was lodged. So records to be kept for check payments, EFTs. Again, similar thing, you keep a record of all the check payments that have gone out, the direct debits, any EFTs, the electronic funds transfers, standing orders, transfers, bank fees. And again, the same thing, it can be kept by hand or Excel or your accounts package. And again, here's a sample of your checks journal. Again, it has your date, the details of what it was, the reference, which is your check reference, or if it's an EFT, your total, and then analyzing across between membership, insurance, music classes, dancing classes, whatever your activities are in your unit. And again, down at the bottom, your total, analyzing across, and then across top to make sure that everything is analyzed fully. And as I said, this can be done by hand or by Excel. Other records to be kept, your bank records. You have to keep your bank statements. Your bank statements will come regularly during the year. Sometimes they come by month, by quarter. Again, if it's coming annually, you need to make sure that you're getting your bank statement that will tie in with your financial year end. So discuss that with your bank. They can change the date that your bank statements issue. Get them monthly if you're a very busy unit, or get them quarterly or whatever. If you have deposits accounts, if you have deposit books or credit union records, again, keep a record of those and keep them to hand at all times. As I said earlier, the question is what do you use to keep the records as a treasurer? I would suggest either, as I said, the analysis book. They're Cathedral, they're a red book with either 14 columns or 16 columns. The more columns across you have, the more analysis you can do and the more accurate a record you will have. Or as I said, the spreadsheet can be set up if you're happy enough with using Excel or a similar kind of spreadsheet package. Work it out and put it across. But I would say if you are using some kind of a computerized system, make sure you keep it back up onto a separate zip drive and print out a hard copy, especially at the year end, just as a backup, because we've all had the situation where a computer crashes and you lose your information. So do keep backups. And again, it's easy to pass on your little zip drive to the next treasurer when you finally escape as off the committee. Another question people would ask is, what headings do I use in the books? You saw there I had, say, for the payments across, there was membership, there was insurance, there was music classes. You look at the activities you're doing in your branch or your county board, and you look at your financial statements at the end of the year. If you look at the headings that you need for your financial statements, set up your books, your payments book and your cash receipts to line up with those. If you have your analysis done on that, then there are your figures done for the end of the year. Use as many columns as you can, rather than kind of having just 3 or 4 columns and everything else going to sundries, because when you come to the end of the year, you have to reanalyze your sundries. So use your 14 or 16 columns across, even if you've only 1 or 2 figures in it. It makes it easier at the end of the year that when you down tot everything for the year, all your transactions, your figures are ready for your financial statements. So that's why I'm saying, look at what you need for your financial statements, look at the activities of your unit and set up your headings. Every unit is going to be different. If you have dancing classes, you're going to have income from your dancing classes, you're going to have dancing teachers, you're going to have music. If you only have music classes, that's what you have. If you have singing classes, it's going to vary from unit to unit. The cash receipts, there we are again. And your EFTs, we've done that. Again, coming back to the cash. If you have to pay something in cash, and as I said, we've all had it where you have a KV, you have 2 musicians coming to play and they won't take it as an EFT, they won't take a check from you, they just want euros, right? We have to do it at sometimes, but the advice I would give, if you have to pay cash, count, this is a safeguard for you as a treasurer, count the money with another officer there, get them to check it so that you have a witness that the 350 euros that you're paying to the band for the Cayley, you've counted it out and there's somebody with you when you're doing it. It can't be questioned then that you took money or there was money went missing or whatever. And what I would do then is if you pay out your 350 euros to the band in cash, write a check payable to your unit for the 350 euros, put that with the rest of the cash that you've taken in and lodge it. Then you have your full lodgement coming in. You have your check going out for 350 euros, which analyzes as the bank or as your band. So there's your proper records being kept. Okay. Back in the day, you'd have written the payee would have been cash, but again, banks are giving problems with that. So if it's for argument's sake, say Ballincollig would be our branch, you make your check payable to Ballincollig and you lodge it in with the rest of your cash. There you have your full receipts coming in. You have your 350 euros going out, which is for the band or whatever cash you've paid out. So there's a way of recording the cash. But as I said, as a safeguard, make sure that you get somebody to check the cash with you and double check it that it's correct. Recording a membership. Again, you have to work with your branch secretary in this. This is geared towards branches. At the end of the day, when it comes to doing your financial statements, you need to have a record of the membership coming in. The branch secretary will have her secretary's report, which she'll say there was so many members. You need to agree. So you need to work together that if the branch secretary is collecting, if you have a form for your membership coming in, make sure that the branch secretary gives you a list. You check off that you should have, say, 12 senior members at 12 is 144. She has 12 gone in on the form. You have 144 euros going in to your bank as a receipt. So make sure you cross-check and work in conjunction with your secretary, because it will, if you do it from the start of the year, when, as say at the moment, when membership fees are coming in, reconcile there, it'll be done at the end of the year when you're doing your financial statements. Remember, separate checks for the Cisteoir and the membership. Checks should be going to the county board with your branch membership, and that correspondence, just from a record point of view, should come from the branch secretary. That's the way I would recommend it, that if you're sending checks, you get your checks written, you give them to your branch secretary, and she sends them to the county board. Again, we've online membership now, so that's making things easier. And I know some branches are using EFTs for paying membership and for paying the Cisteoir as well. So that's I suppose progress. And again, communication, it's imperative between officers. We're all working together as a branch or as a county or as a province. We all work together. It's a team effort, and you have to have communication. So I'll be dealing with that as we go on. Again, we have branch meetings regularly, county board meetings, and as a treasurer, what do you do? Okay, always there's a recommendation that you would have finance as one of the items on the agenda for your branch meeting or your provincial meeting or your county board. So as a treasurer, we need to be able to come to that meeting and give an up-to-date position about where the bank is, what we've done since the last meeting. If you keep your records up to date, all you have to do is print out your records from the bank or from the Excel spreadsheet, or bring your red book and you go, this is what has happened since the last meeting. We've so much in the bank, we had this activity and whatever. So you have to give a clear picture as to where your unit is when it comes to the meeting. If you're doing your job properly and you're coming to the branch or your county board with the clear details of what money is in the bank, what has been profitable, what's working, what's not, it allows your unit to make an informed decision as to what's working and what's not. And if the money is starting to run low, then you may have to cancel this event that was going to cost you a lot of money. You may have to tighten the belt. So you need to kind of have timely information so that you can monitor what's happening at your unit. And again, if you've had an event since the last meeting, you need to give a rundown to your unit as to the income that came in from that event. If it was a Cayley, you need to be able to say, well, we had a Cayley, there was 1,250 euros came in, we paid out 350 euros, there was so much went to the hall, so we made a profit of 600 euros for argument's sake. I know those figures don't add up, but so that's one of the reporting things that you have to do at your meeting. You have to say what happened since the last meeting and whether it made money or lost money. And the other thing that we have to remember is, as branch treasurers and branch officers, but in particular treasurers, we are only the custodians of the finances. The money isn't ours. We look after it, but it is Comhaltas money. And we have a duty as a treasurer to keep our units informed of the state of the finances. So we are just doing a job. Yes, it's voluntary. Yes, we take care of it. And I know some treasurers treat the money as if it's their own because they take such care of it. But it is Comhaltas money. So we do have a responsibility to keep our branches and our units informed of the state of play. Financial statements, we're all on AGM time at the moment and preparing financial statements. So what do you need to do to get your financial statements in order and get ready for your AGM? Number one, it might be obvious, but you need to get all your books and records up to date. You need to get your bank statements, need to get all your books filled in that I've listed out earlier, your cash receipts book, your cash payments, your check payments, everything has to be up to date and ticked off with your bank. You need to contact your officers and make sure that if there are any expenses that they've incurred, we all do it. We all go and buy things for Comhaltas and spend our own money because that's what we do. You don't have your Comhaltas checkbook with you all the time, so you may spend money and need to be reimbursed. So you need to ask your officers if they have any expenses that they need to be reimbursed for. You need to look at the events that were held during the year. And again, this is maybe where you sit down with your branch secretary and say, look, what's in the report? Yeah, make sure that everything is being accounted for in their report, in your report. That have you collected all the income? Was there somebody offered sponsorship? Was the local shop say, oh, I'll give you €100? Has that come in? If it hasn't, chase it up. Has all the money been lodged? Make sure that the events are all accounted for, that there isn't a cash box with a couple of €100 sitting there that hasn't been lodged. Have all the expenses been identified? If I'm going with a KD again, have a look at the event for the KD. Was the band paid? Was the hall paid? Was the tea paid for? Though it might sound obvious, but this is your cross-check for yourself. This is, as a treasurer, how you make sure that everything is there. And again, you need to make sure that your bank statements, that you have the bank statements for the full year, but that you have, most importantly, the bank statement at the end of the year, so that you can reconcile everything and you tick off your records against the bank statements to make sure everything ties up. Again, continuing on about the books and records and your financial statements, if you have them completed, tot them, check the cross tots, print out all your books and records, and then agree the figures to the bank statement. So you literally have to go through and tick off that if you have a check down, check number 501 was for €500. It came through in the bank as €500. You tick it off that it's correct. If it came through in the bank as €501, then you need to amend your bank your records, your branch records, to reflect the actual correct amount. Because we've all done it. You look at a check and you say, oh, that's €500. That might be €50. So you need to cross-check if your records, your checks journal and your lodgements don't agree with your bank statements, then your accounts won't balance at the end of the year. So that's how you do your cross-check. Make any amendments that are necessary in your bank or in your records, and then reprint. These records form the basis of your financial statements. And as I said earlier, if you set up your headings at the start of the year properly, with enough detail all the way across, the bottom line across the cash receipts book is your income side of your financial statements. The bottom line across your checks journal page is your expenses. The difference between one and the other is your profit. That's oversimplifying it maybe, but that's it in general, right? And you use the online system to generate your financial statements. And again, there's a screenshot. The one thing I would say is make sure that you use all your analysis categories down here. You can see up here on the top, we've a line now saying, please break down items over multiple rows. So you put in, this is a screenshot from our own branch ones without the figures. We have the music classes, the membership. There was grant from Munster Council, grant from Cork County Board, the SCT exam fees, there was a donation. There was our income. They were the headings that I had across my book. And on the other side, you have your insurance, your bank interest and charges, bank fees, printing, post and stationery, whatever your headings are. So the left-hand side is your income, the right-hand side is your expenses. The difference between one and the other is your profit or your loss. So in our case here, we have an excess of income over expenditure, which goes in down here, and then the two sides balance up. Okay, but it's not enough to just put in on the first line here, branch income for the year, €25,346, and on the other side, branch expenses, 23,000 and a profit of 2,000. You have to give the full analysis all the way down. Okay. And our next page, hopefully, is our balance sheet. So your balance sheet. Again, you have your opening figures on the left-hand side, your closing figures on the right-hand side. The difference between your opening figures and your closing figures will be your profit and loss. That's the only difference. So if you think of a simple situation, in this situation, there's, in our accounts here, there's different bank accounts, and there's an instrument bank, and there's equipment and whatever. But if you take a simple situation where at the start of the year, you had €1,000 and you made a profit for the year after everything of €250. Your bank balance at the end of the year would be €1,250. Simple as. So on your left-hand side will be your opening figure, which was €1,000. Added onto it with the excess of income over expenditure of €250. And on the right-hand side will be your closing bank balance, which is 1,250. There's your balance. So you have your profit coming from your income and expenditure account, and then you have your balance sheet which balances up everything. Okay, so you should be working from your opening figures on the left-hand side, adding on your profit, and that gives you your closing figure on the right-hand side. And by the same token, if you had a loss of €250, using the same scenario there, you had €1,000 at the start, you had a loss of €250, so your balance at the end is €750. Now, that's a very simple way of looking at it, but that's how you balance up your books. Okay, so, and the online system is great because it tots down and it works out everything for you. So it's great to have it, and very easy to print it from it as well. So yes, you can just write it out or type it out separately, but when you're submitting from the branch to the county board, when you're submitting your membership, you have to fill in the details of the financial statements on the system. So why not use that to generate your financial statements? So use your books and records, slot in the figures, and use that to print out for your financial statements for your AGM. Okay. Again, preparing for your AGM, be sure you have a backup of all the figures for initially for your auditor and then for your AGM, because any branch member can ask you a question about what the figures that you're presenting to them. They can ask you what it's made up of, how come there was a profit, you know, no, they can ask any question. So make sure you have your backup, because you can't sit there as a treasurer at your AGM and say, I'm not sure. You have to have the answer. So that means you need to know your books and records yourself. I would always have comparative figures from the previous year. Again, it could be just because someone would say, oh, well, how come there's €1,000 paid out this year? Well, you can say, well, there was 1,000 paid out last year, and there was 1,000 paid out the year before for X, Y, Z. So it proves that this year's figures aren't out of line. But also it can kind of give you an indication as to where there's a problem. And again, we are the custodians. We are the people who are looking after your unit financially for the period of time while you're treasurer, be it 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever. So we have a responsibility to look at the comparatives, look at what happened last year, look at what happened the year before. If you have a profit this year, what did you do this year that made it a profit if you had a loss last year, and vice versa. So again, keep looking back as we look forward. Coming on to the auditor. I suppose I've geared this from a treasurer's point of view as to what the auditor may want, but from an auditor's point of view, it's telling you what you should be looking for. The first thing that I have to say is the auditor is a volunteer. The auditor is on the committee. They're not there to be checking up on you. They're there as a safeguard, more for you than for anything else. They're a safeguard for you that you're doing the job well. And they'll sign off and say, yes, everything ties up, everything is correct. You shouldn't look on it as the auditor is coming to check up on you. The auditor is coming to tick off that you're doing a good job, that your figures are right, and to give a little bit of security to the branch and to you that everything is above board. And just bear in mind that we've all been at AGMs and you're looking around and you're trying to get someone to take a job, and we've all been there. We've all got landed with jobs that we didn't want, but the auditor may not have any experience they may not be into books and records. So bear that in mind and go through it with them and explain to them as to what's happening and where the figures are coming from and what you're doing. As I said, they're an independent member of the unit, appointed at the AGM. Just they're there to kind of back up your figures rather than as a watchdog. So don't be afraid of the auditors. And again, auditors, if you're looking from the auditor's point of view, the opposite is true. You're not going to try and find a fault or trying to find a problem. You're there just to tick off and say, yes, they're doing the job right. Now, obviously, if there is an issue there, you do bring it to the attention of your unit. But for the most part, you're there as a safeguard and just to make sure everything is above board and right. What will the auditor want? Again, the auditor will want to just verify the accuracy of the accounts that you're giving. They'll need to look at all the backup information and the documentation that you used to produce your accounts. So that's all the books and records that we've talked about earlier and the bank statements. So whatever you used to generate your financial statements, you need to provide that to the auditor as backup. And you can't just land in the night of the AGM 5 minutes before the meeting and say, there are the accounts, there's everything, sign off it. You need to arrange for them to have a look at things, either sit down with them for a half an hour the week before the AGM, or give them the books and they'll give them back to you, depending on what works best. And when you're coming to your AGM, it may seem like an obvious thing, you must have signed financial statements. They must be signed by you and the auditor when you're coming to your AGM. If they're not signed by you and approved by your auditor, you can't get them approved at your AGM and you can't submit them to the next level of the organization. So it's very important that it might be just a tick boxing exercise, but you have to get it done. You have to go through it with your auditor, and both of you have to assign them that they are correct. And again, the accounts must be approved at the AGM and they're submitted online with your first submission of membership. The first submission of membership won't go without the financial statements. So if you haven't your financial statements approved and signed off and approved at your AGM, your unit can't submit them with their membership. The membership doesn't go through. You're not a properly registered branch. And then there's a knock-on effect. If you're not a properly registered branch with the organization, you may have an insurance problem down the road should you have a problem. If there's an issue, if there's something happens and you're not fully registered, you may not have full insurance cover. So it's very important that you get all the work done and get your accounts approved. Moving on to maybe some more basic things about the roles of a treasurer. Are we doing time-wise? We're okay. When you're planning an event, what do you do? Again, this may be very easy and very obvious to some of you who are doing this for a long time, but I'm gearing this towards maybe some new treasurers or people who are starting off. Look at, if you're having an event, be it a Cayley or a concert or whatever, there's a couple of things to think about. Timing. What time is the event starting? What time do the doors need to be open? And how long do we stay at the door collecting money? Do we stay quarter of an hour? Are we there for half an hour? You just need to sit down and work this out. Manpower. Who's going to sit at the door? If it's if it's something that's going to be on for a couple of hours, do you need a rota where 2 people are going to do it for the first hour, somebody else is going to do it for the other hour? From a float point of view, look at what you're charging at the door. If it's €5 admission, then you only need notes. If it's a €7 admission, you need notes, you need €2 coins, you need €1 coins. So again, just a bit of thought on it, and work out how much of a float you need, the breakdown of a float you need, get to the bank in advance. And one other thing is, make sure you leave out the float when you're doing your tot at the end of the day, because I've seen it plenty of times where you come along at the end of the night, you tot all your money, you count the money in the box, and you say, that's great, we have €1,200 we made tonight. 400 of that was your float. So you have 800 as your income for the night. So the float, keeping a record of it at the start. And again, if you're bringing the float and if you're not the person at the door, ask whoever's at the door to double check the float to make sure that that's what was there at the start. Okay. And as I said, make sure you exclude the float from your income. Planning an event, again, raffle. Are we having a raffle? Have we enough raffle tickets? Have we prizes? Who's going to sell the tickets? Do they need a float? Do we need to give them bags to collect the money? And have you a box to put all the raffle tickets into? These are all the things that the treasurer is usually responsible for. Might seem obvious, but just think about it. These are the things that you need to kind of tick the boxes. Again, safeguarding, when you're counting the money, have someone with you. You can count all the money, but just make sure that there's someone there with you, keeping an eye or helping you, right? If you're dealing with tickets for a concert or whatever, if you're selling tickets in advance, how soon do we need to get them printed? make sure you get numbers on your tickets so that you can keep a record of who has the tickets and make sure all the money is collected at the end. Numbers on tickets is very important because at least that way you can write down that Majella Bartley got 4 tickets and Pat Flanagan got 4 tickets. He got numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Majella got numbers 5, 6, 7, and 8. You have a cross check on your list as to where all the tickets went to. But in the end of the day, if you need to, you can actually go through the tickets and say, yeah, they were all used, that was done, whatever. And you can cross check your money. So make sure that you have a full record of your tickets and where they went to. Coming on to Flagheol. If you're the treasurer of a Flagheol, be it county flag or a provincial flag, you have the same requirement as a treasurer to keep the proper records. The same records will be required as a unit. Your flag committee is formed. Remember, that flag committee is a subcommittee of the hosting unit, so it's a subcommittee of the county board. You need a separate bank account for your flag. You'll have joint signatories on that account. One will be the flag treasurer and the other will be someone from the county board. And your bank account needs to be in the name of Flagheol, Cúnda Corkee, or Flagheol Corkee, or Flagheol on the Moon, or whatever. But it's a separate bank account. And again, if your unit is hosting the flag and you're having events as a flag committee and you're having events as a unit, you need to keep them separate. So if you're the treasurer of both, you need to keep things, you have 2 separate sets of books, you have 2 separate bank accounts, you have 2 separate checkbooks, 2 separate logins on your EFTs or on your online banking. So just make sure you keep everything separate. Requirements for your financial statements for a Flagheol, they should be finalized within 3 months of the Flagheol per Rialcha Flagheol. They must be approved by your flag committee and then further approved by, say, the county board or the provincial council if it's a provincial flag. If you're running a flag, if you have a profit, the check for the full profit goes from the flag committee to the county board. The county board will then issue a check for 50% back to the branch because your flag account is your Flagheol account, but it's the branch gets the share of the profit. So the Flagheol account is closed. The full profit is sent from your Flagheol committee to the next unit up, say in the county board. County board lodges that and gives you half back, which you lodge to your branch account and is included as your income in your branch financial statements. And if it's a loss, again, it's split 50-50 between the branch and the county. Okay. Communication is vital within every unit. All our fellow officers need to be informed and fully up to date on everything going on in the branch. I think a lot of the time we tend to leave communication to the chairman and the secretary. And in every branch, there's probably 1 or 2 people who lead the charge when there's an event coming up and they take the responsibility for it. But all the officers have a responsibility. The vice chairman, the secretary, the treasurer, the PRO, we're all working together. We have a common goal in the promotion of the aims and objectives of the organization. So we need to work together. And we're working as a unit for the greater good. So there's an onus on all of us to kind of step up to the mark and don't leave it to just 1 or 2 people within your branch to do all the work. If there's an event coming up, make sure that the work isn't all being left with you as treasurer. Sit down, have a meeting. If you're having a big event like a Cayley or something, make sure there's a branch meeting a week before, 10 days before, where you can sit down and go through the items that I listed there about an event and say, right, lads, who's going to get the raffle tickets? Who's going to get the spot prizes? Who are we going to get this? Split out the work. Don't take it all on yourself. It's a team effort. And as I said, communication needs to go both ways. It can't be just 1 or 2 people like the secretary or the chairman doing all the communication. It has to work from all the committee. Again, going back to the points I made earlier about flagging an issue as a treasurer, we have a responsibility to make the unit aware if there's an issue with finances, or if we're making losses, or if we're starting to run low on cash, be it short term or long term. We need to work together as a unit and discuss the issues and see where we're going. And again, if we have an event, we need to look at, was it a profit, was it a loss? That will help you decide next year, well, oh, hang on now, lads, the concert, we lost €1,000 in the concert last year. We're not going to do it this year. What will we do instead? Checks, again, under communication, if you're sending your checks for your membership, your insurance or anything, sort out your check, discuss it with your secretary, make sure it agrees with his or her records, give the check to the secretary, and the secretary sends it with a letter. There's a proper, that you have a paper trail then from your branch to the county board, or from your branch to whoever provides services to you, that you're paying them. And you have a record of it being sent. Few general points. How are we doing in time? We're nearly there. Just remember, any money that's held by the branch, by any unit, must be in a bank account in the name of the unit. It's never in an individual's name. Never have a situation where you have Ballincollig Comhaltas have a bank account in AIB, but they have a credit union account which is in the name of Magella Bartley. That's not the way it works. Sorry, Magella, not meaning to imply anything there. So just make sure that all the bank accounts that are there are in the name of the unit. 2 signatories are required on all checks. And again, if you're setting up a mandate for 2 signatories, try and get it set up that it's any 2 out of 3, be it the chairman, the secretary, and the treasurer, that 2 out of the 3, that it's not just same 2, that it's not the secretary and the treasurer. Not saying anything against having just 2 people, but if you have 2 out of 3, if somebody is sick, the other 2 can do it. And again, it's easier. You may be able to meet, the chairman and secretary may be able to meet, whereas the treasurer might be on holidays or something, and there's a check has to be paid, the other 2 can sign it off. If you're using online banking, again, set it up in a similar way that you need 2 people to authorize. And again, have the same thing. You have your little dongles, or you have your little app on your phone for authorizing. 2 people to sign off. And again, with your online banking, you can set up limits. Some people are afraid of online banking, that there's too much access to funds and it's too easy to do things. You can set up limits that the maximum amount on any one transaction is €3,000 or €2,000 or €1,000, and there's a maximum number of transactions allowed per day, up to a total value of, say, 5,000 in any one day. So you can set up limits that will safeguard the money there. And again, as I said, 2 out of 3 people, 1 person will set it up and authorize it, and the other person then can sign on and authorize it. Good way of doing that, if you have 2 or 3 people who are online, have the access to the online banking, have a little WhatsApp group with the 3 of you in it, call it Ballincollig Bank or whatever. And if you put on a payment saying, I've just put up a payment for the membership for €350, I've emailed you the copy of the details, will one of you go on and authorize it? One of the others then can look at the email and say, yeah, that's right, we'll authorize it, and it's done. Okay. Remember, we have charitable status. Historically, it meant that you had no bank fees. That seems to have gone out the window, but it is worth approaching your bank, your manager, and saying, look, we do have charitable status. What can you do on your fees? They might give you 50% off fees for a year. They might give you free access to internet banking for a while. They may give you sponsorship. Each bank manager has a little bit of money that they can give sometimes. So it's worth going in, cap in hand, and saying, can you do anything for us? Here's our charitable status. Might seem obvious, always keep your books and records up to date. None of us know if one of us gets sick or something happens and someone has to take over at the drop of a hat. You need to have your stuff as up to date as possible so that somebody can take over from you. And as I've said earlier, we're the custodians of the finances. We have to be prudent. We have to take care of the money, but the money is Comhaltas money, and that's the most important thing, that the unit decides how best to employ the money that's there and what to spend it on. We're the custodians, branches or county boards or whatever will make the decisions as to where we're spending the money. And that's it. I think that's covered most things. And I think we're okay time-wise, Majella. I think that's...
Yep, absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that, Diarmuid. Okay, a couple of questions have come in through the chat. I'll just go back there. Yeah, somebody was just wondering if the presentation will be on will be available on the website, on the Comhaltas website, on the front page under the Cothromaíocht tab. So just in case some people came in late and they were wondering if they would be able to see the slides, so they will be there. So that's perfect. There was a question there of if our financial accounts were not ready to be presented by the Treasurer at the AGM, do we just present them at the next board meeting?
I would say yes. I mean, they have to be presented. What I would do if they're not available at the AGM, your unit can't register. So what I would do is fix and the next meeting, rather than if you're say it's a county board, for argument's sake, if your county board meeting is every 2 months, you need to look at the date and bring forward maybe a county board meeting, have a discussion at your AGM and say, well, look, we don't have the financial statements tonight. We'll have them in 2 weeks. We'll have a special county board meeting, which will just approve the financial statements. There's an option of doing it on Zoom nowadays. If you want to do something like that, there's an option there. But you need to get the financial statements approved as soon as possible, ideally at the AGM, but as soon as possible afterwards, because as I said, you need to fill in the details from your financial statements on your online membership system to go forward. So it is a matter of urgency to get them done as soon as possible.
Perfect. Okay. Another one there. Am I right in thinking that the Treasurer doesn't have any responsibility for the teacher's tax?
Again, this is a question that's coming up more and more. The teachers are effectively self-employed, but I know Revenue are starting to look at that and look at how people report their tax. But from a branch point of view, I would get an invoice from your teachers, giving you an invoice saying that they were doing so much and this is what their work, they sign off on it and get them to confirm that they're returning the tax themselves. You can do out a form for them and fill it out. But as far as the way we would work it is that we get the invoice from our teachers, we pay the teachers are responsible for their own tax. But I know some branches have registered as employers and are running as employers. I know that some units have started doing that. Again, I suppose if you're charging an hourly rate for your teachers, or if your teachers are being paid an hourly rate, you're starting to go down the road of being an employer, and Revenue are starting to look at that more and more. So it is something that has been raised with head office and with the accountants at head office level. So I presume there will be more guidance coming out from that, Majella, in due course.
Yeah, perfect. And then where can I get the certificate of charitable status?
If you go onto the admin system, the membership system, there's a section called downloads, and it has different rules and regulations and whatever that you can download. And if you scroll down through it, the charitable status is there as far as I know. Yeah,
it certainly is. Okay, that's all the questions that was in the chat. So does anybody else have any other comments or questions?
I'd stop sharing my screen now and we'll be able to see more than.
Thank you. Now, anybody? No? I think your job is done, Diarmuid.
Coffee time.
Thanks a million for that. That was absolutely very, very informative even, for myself, and very well put together. Thank you so much for that. So I
just say maybe 2 quick questions, Diarmuid, if you don't mind. One would be in relation to uncashed checks at the time of the AGM, and the second one would be depreciation of instruments.
Okay, the uncashed checks would be, they will form part of your expenditure So say if we go back to the example that I had earlier, where you have your bank balance per your bank statement is say €1,000, and if you have a check that hasn't been cashed, in reality your bank balance is only €800. So that's the way you have the check included as one of your expenses because it has been paid out. It's just that somebody hasn't cashed it. So it is an expense of the branch. So it is included as one of your expenses. And then when you're trying to balance up at the end of the year, you've ticked off all the transactions that have gone through. You have your bank balance at the 31st of October or 30th of September, which is €1,000, but you have an uncashed check of €200 for argument's sake. So your actual adjusted balance is only €800 because once that person cashes the check, there is only €800 there. As regards depreciation, again, musical, it's a hard one. I mean, I'm an accountant, so depreciation, to explain what it is you depreciate the asset over the expected useful life of the asset. So if you buy a computer and you want to show it in your balance sheet as an asset, and your computer costs you €2,000 and you feel you're going to get 4 years out of it, you depreciate €500 per annum because you do 25% per year. Musical instruments, a lot of the time, don't tend to depreciate very quickly. Unless, no, if you can buy something that's only €50, it may not last too long. But that would be the general gist of depreciation, that you depreciate an asset over the expected useful life of it. So if you buy a concertina that's €400 and it's part of your instrument bank, if you feel you're going to get 10 years out of that concertina before you have to throw it out, then you will do a depreciation of 10% per annum. Now, depreciation is only a notional figure. It's only going to come into account if you show the instruments as an asset in your bank or in your balance sheet. So it's basically you have to decide the useful life of the instrument concerned and then base your depreciation rate on that. It could be 10 years, it could be 20 years, or you could just leave it there until such time as what happens in some instrument banks. I know it happens in ours. We buy a concertina, somebody has it for a year, and then they ask us, can they buy that concertina? So then you're selling it. So if you've depreciated it, then you're complicating things. Do you know? So you may have to sit down and look at how your instrument bank works. Are you looking at keeping them all the way through for 10 years and then writing them off? Or is there a chance that you're going to be selling them? If you're going to be selling them every year or every 2 years, you're probably better off not to depreciate and just work it then as an expense separate.
Great stuff, Diarmuid. Good for that.
Okay, just a couple of more has popped up here, Diarmuid. Can you confirm the financial year ends? The
branch is 31st of August, isn't it?
Yeah.
County board is it November? October, November. I'll have to check that.
It's the 31st of October.
Yeah.
For county board.
And provincial council is 31st of December.
Yeah.
So, and head office is national is 31st of December as well. But the branch used to be later, but we brought it back. There was motions came in over the years, and we brought it back to the 31st of August to tie in with kind of our teaching year, that your classes are starting the 1st September. So it makes sense to have your financial year working from the 1st September to 31st of August. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, another, so can you confirm if the treasurer is specifically the person who is responsible for the FLA trophies or the FLA related equipment like printers, computers, etc.?
The FLA treasurer, I think it's in the rules about the FLA treasurer being responsible for the trophies. Again, I'd have to check it, but in general, it is the treasurer of the unit that would take responsibility of the trophies because they are the assets. The other FLA related equipment, printers, computers, I would say that in general, in a unit, a FLA wouldn't have that equipment. Your unit would, your county board, your branch would have it. in general, the person who's responsible for the equipment, like the printers and the computers, is the person who's using it. If it's your secretary has your laptop and the printer, they're responsible for the upkeep of that and minding it and whatever. So, but as a treasurer, we have a responsibility to safeguard the assets. So I'm not saying you have to call to the secretary, but you are responsible for all the assets of your unit. But the person who's minding it is probably the treasurer or the secretary who's actually using the equipment.
Perfect. Okay, one more here. Can the auditor be a bank signatory?
I would say there's nothing stopping an auditor being a bank signatory. That the auditor can't have another role or another officership within the unit. Personally, I would think that it would be better not to have the auditor as a bank signatory. I would go with one of the other officers in your branch rather than the auditor, just purely from, I suppose, a kind of a keeping the roles separate, because your auditor is coming in to check the books and records, and if they're signing the checks or they're signing the bank or the online banking, there's a little lack of independence there. So I would not, there's nothing stopping you from doing it, but I would say best practice would be not to have it.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else for anybody? Okay, I think something else has popped up. Is there an issue if region, county board does tax returns for December 31st, which doesn't tie in with the dates you just said?
The financial statements are governed by the Bunreacht, and the dates that your financial statements are made up to are governed by your Bunreacht. So if you're doing financial statements to a date that isn't per the Bunreacht, you're breaking the rules of the organization. So I would say it's an issue. I think you have to do the rules of Comhaltas are clearly laid out within the Bunreacht as to what the year ends are. So you have to adhere to that.
Must the bank account be based in Ireland? Like, can there be like
Revolut?
Yeah.
I would say there's no problem with Revolut. I mean, as an accountant, I have clients who have accounts with AIB, Bank of Ireland, and I do have clients who have accounts with Revolut. Once it's a recognized financial institution and it is a regulated financial institution, look, if we've all heard the ads on the radio about it's regulated by the Financial Services Ombudsman or whatever. If you have an account with Revolut, it is guaranteed, the money is in there, it is guaranteed by the state up to a certain value, which is 100,000. So you're not going to lose the money if the bank goes to the wall. That's all I'd be afraid of, is that make sure that it is a recognized financial institution and that it is regulated within Ireland. Revolut is the obvious example. Revolut is based in Latvia, Liechtenstein, one of those countries over there. But it is regulated by the Irish Financial Services, so you do have that safeguard there. So that's all I would say.
Perfect. Are the dates the same for US?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Yeah.
Because you have the branches and you have your regions. So yes.
Yeah. And then just to confirm them one more time, I know Maureen was driving, she's parked now, so she wants to write them down.
Again, they're in the Bunreacht if anyone wants to check it up. But branch is 31st of August, county is 31st of October, and province is 31st of December.
Yep.